What happens when a husband, humiliated in front of friends and family by his wife's harmless joke with her ex, responds not with anger but with evidence, and serves her divorce papers in broad daylight? How far can someone push the boundaries of trust before the consequences become public and irreversible? Can confidence and social bravado survive when the law and dignity finally step in? The notification sound from my phone made me smile as I watched the view count climb. 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 views in just 2 hours. The video of me walking down the aisle with Cade at our vow renewal ceremony was going viral, and I couldn't have been happier. Vess, can we talk? Mason's voice cut through my social media high like a knife through butter. My husband of 8 years stood in the doorway of our bedroom, his face wearing that serious expression I'd grown to hate. What's up, babe? I didn't look up from my phone, too busy reading the comments. Most were laughing emojis and fire symbols, though I noticed a few negative ones I'd have to delete later. About yesterday, the ceremony, what you did with Cade. Mason sat on the edge of our bed, his hands clasped together in that way that meant he was trying to stay calm. People are talking, Vess. My co-workers, your family, everyone who was there. I finally looked up, rolling my eyes. Oh, come on, Mason. It was just a joke. You're being way too dramatic about this. A joke? His voice cracked slightly. You had your ex-boyfriend walk you down the aisle at our vow renewal, in front of our 6-year-old daughter, your parents, my sister, everyone we know. How is that a joke? The memory made me smile again. Cade had looked so handsome in his navy suit, his musician's confidence radiating as we walked arm in arm down the aisle, while everyone gasped. The look on Mason's face had been priceless, pure shock mixed with embarrassment. It was exactly the reaction I'd been hoping for. Look, Mason, this is 2024. Love isn't about ownership anymore. Cade and I share memories. We have history. That doesn't just disappear because I married you. I held up my phone, showing him the climbing view count. Besides, look how many people love it. We're practically famous. Mason stared at the screen, his jaw tightening. Famous for what? For humiliating your husband? For making a mockery of our marriage? For being bold, for being real, for not pretending that my past doesn't exist? I stood up, pacing to the window. You knew when we got married that Cade and I were still friends. You said you were okay with it. I said I was okay with you being friends. I didn't say I was okay with him taking my place at our wedding ceremony. He didn't take your place. You were right there at the altar, waiting for me. It was symbolic, Mason. It represented how all the pieces of my life come together to make me who I am today. Mason was quiet for a long moment, just staring at his hands. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, flatter, more controlled. Your mother called this morning. She said she was proud of you for keeping things interesting. See? Mom gets it. She understands that I'm not going to live my life walking on eggshells, worried about what other people think. And my sister called too. She asked if I needed a place to stay. That stopped me cold. Naomi had never liked me much. Always thought I wasn't good enough for her precious brother. What did you tell her? I told her I'd think about it. Mason, you're being ridiculous. It was one moment, one silly little gesture that people are blowing way out of proportion. In a week, everyone will have forgotten about it. He stood up slowly, walking toward the door. Maybe, but I won't have. Where are you going? To set up the guest room. I think we both need some space to think. As he left, I heard our daughter Piper's voice from down the hall. Daddy, why did Mommy walk with that man yesterday instead of you? I couldn't hear Mason's response, but the tone was gentle, patient. The same tone he used to use with me before everything got so complicated. I looked back at my phone. The view count was up to 8,000 now. The caption I'd written was perfect. When your past and present collide in the most beautiful way. Modern love, authentic life, vow renewal, blessed. Most of the comments were supportive, calling me brave and authentic, A few people were being negative, but those were probably just jealous wives who wished they had the courage to live as boldly as I did. I started typing a response to one of the supportive comments when I heard Mason's footsteps in the hallway, followed by the sound of the guest room door closing. He'd get over it. He always did. Mason was steady, predictable, safe. That's why I'd married him in the first place. He provided stability while I brought excitement to the relationship. It was a perfect balance, even if he couldn't see it sometimes. My phone buzzed with a text from Cade. Saw the video. Looks like we caused quite a stir. I smiled, typing back. Worth every second. You looked amazing up there. So did you. Mason seemed surprised. He'll be fine. He just needs time to adjust to the new normal. If you say so. Dinner tomorrow. I want to hear all about the aftermath. I glanced toward the guest room where I could hear Mason moving around, probably setting up his laptop on the small desk. Absolutely. Same place as always. You know it. See you at 7. I put the phone down and walked to my vanity, studying my reflection. At 32, I still looked good. My marketing job kept me sharp, and my social media presence was growing every day. I was finally becoming the person I'd always wanted to be, bold, authentic, unafraid to challenge social conventions. Mason would come around. He always did. And if he didn't, well, maybe it was time for him to grow up and accept that the woman he married wasn't going to shrink herself to make other people comfortable. The view count hit 10,000 as I watched. I screenshot it and posted it to my Instagram story with the caption, "When you know you're living your truth." From down the hall, I heard Piper asking Mason about dinner, her sweet 6-year-old voice cutting through the tension that had settled over our house like fog. "We'll figure it out, sweetheart," Mason said, and something in his tone made me pause. But then another notification popped up. Someone had shared my video to their own page with a heart eyes emoji. And I forgot all about the strange note in my husband's voice. After all, I was going viral. This was my moment. The next morning, I woke up to an empty bed and the sound of Mason making breakfast downstairs. For a moment, I'd forgotten about our fight, about him sleeping in the guest room. The smell of coffee and bacon almost made everything feel normal again. But when I walked into the kitchen, Mason barely looked at me. He was focused on making Piper's lunch, his movements precise and methodical. "Morning," I said, reaching for the coffee pot. "Morning." His response was flat, professional, like I was a co-worker instead of his wife. Piper was at the table, eating her cereal and swinging her legs. "Mommy, why didn't Daddy sleep in your room last night?" I felt Mason's shoulders tense, but he kept packing her lunch. "Sometimes grown-ups need space to think, baby," I said, ruffling her hair. "Are you getting divorced like Emma's parents?" The question hit like a slap. "No, sweetheart. Daddy and I are just working through some things. Everything's going to be fine." Mason zipped up Piper's lunch bag without comment. I noticed he'd written her name on it in his careful handwriting, along with a little heart. He'd been doing that since she started kindergarten, a small daily reminder that she was loved. "I'll drop her off today," he said, still not looking at me. "I can do it. I don't have to be at work until 9. "I've got it handled." He handed Piper her backpack. "Ready, kiddo?" As they left, Piper turned back to wave at me. "Bye, Mommy. See you tonight." The house felt empty after they left. I checked my phone. The video was up to 15,000 views now, and I had dozens of new followers. I spent an hour responding to comments and messages, riding the high of viral fame. At work, my co-worker Janet was waiting by my desk with a strange expression on her face. "Vez, can we talk?" "Sure, what's up?" I was still scrolling through notifications, barely paying attention. "It's about your video, the one from your vow renewal." That got my attention. "What about it?" Janet glanced around the office, then leaned closer. "People are talking. It's making the rounds. Some of the comments are pretty harsh." "People are always harsh online. It comes with the territory when you're brave enough to live authentically." Mr. Caro wants to see you in his office at 10. My stomach dropped. Mr. Caro was our HR manager, a serious man who rarely smiled and never joked. What for? I think you know. The meeting was worse than I'd expected. Mr. Caro had printed out screenshots of my social media posts, including the video and several of my more provocative captions from the past few months. Ms. Allard, we need to discuss your online presence and how it reflects on our company. I don't mention the company in any of my personal posts, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Your LinkedIn profile lists you as a marketing assistant here. Your social media accounts are public. When something goes viral, as your video has, people make connections. He spread the screenshots across his desk. We've had 3 clients ask about you specifically since yesterday. What kind of questions? The kind that make them wonder about our company's values and professionalism. I felt my face getting hot. My personal life has nothing to do with my work performance. Normally I'd agree, but when your personal life becomes a public spectacle that affects our business relationships, it becomes my concern. He leaned back in his chair. I'm not asking you to delete anything or change who you are. I'm asking you to consider the consequences of your choices, both for yourself and for your colleagues. Are you threatening my job? I'm having a conversation with a valued employee about professional boundaries. Consider this a friendly warning. The rest of the day dragged. I could feel people staring at me, whispering when they thought I wasn't looking. By lunch, I was ready to scream. I called Cade. Can we move dinner up? I need to get out of here. Rough day? You could say that. Apparently, our little stunt has some people clutching their pearls. Their loss? I'll pick you up at 5. When I got home, Mason was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop and a stack of papers. Piper was in the living room, watching cartoons. You're home early, I said. Took a half day. Had some things to take care of. He didn't look up from whatever he was working on. I tried to see what was on his screen, but he angled it away from me. What kind of things? Personal business. Mason, we need to talk about this. You can't just shut me out because you didn't like one moment at our ceremony. One moment? He finally looked at me, and I was startled by the coldness in his eyes. Ves, you've been posting about Cade for months. Dinner photos, inside jokes, comments about your special friendship. Yesterday wasn't one moment. It was just the most public one. We're friends. I'm allowed to have friends. Friends don't usually walk each other down the aisle at vow-renewal ceremonies. It was symbolic. It was humiliating. His voice was quiet, but there was steel in it. Do you have any idea what it felt like to stand there and watch my wife choose another man for one of the most important moments of our marriage, in front of everyone we know? I felt tears starting. I didn't choose him over you. I was walking toward you. With him. Mason, please, you're making this bigger than it needs to be. He closed his laptop and gathered his papers. I changed the password on our joint checking account today. You what? You heard me. I also opened my own savings account and had my paycheck redirected there. You can't do that. We're married. I can, and I did. You'll still have access to your own checking account and your salary, but I'm protecting my assets until we figure out what we're doing here. I stared at him, shocked. Mason had never been controlling about money. If anything, he'd been too generous, always telling me to buy whatever I wanted, never questioning my spending. This is insane. You're punishing me for having friends, for being myself. I'm protecting myself from someone who thinks humiliating her husband in public is a form of self-expression. He walked past me toward the stairs, then stopped. Oh, and Ves, I know you're having dinner with Cade tonight. Piper mentioned it when I picked her up from school. She said you told her you were going out with the man from the wedding. My face burned. It's just dinner. I'm sure it is. I'll be here with our daughter, again. As he went upstairs, I heard him on the phone with someone, his voice low and serious. I caught fragments. Documentation. Timeline. Consultation. I tried to listen more closely, but Piper called from the living room. Mommy, can we have pizza tonight? Daddy's making dinner, baby. But you're going out, right? With Cade? The way she said his name, so casually, made me realize she'd been hearing it a lot lately. Too much, maybe. Just for a little while. At dinner with Cade, I told him about Mason's reaction, about the money, about work. He listened sympathetically, occasionally reaching across the table to touch my hand. He's trying to control you, Cade said, making you feel guilty for being yourself. I know. It's like he wants me to pretend my past doesn't exist. You can't erase history. We have something special, Vess. We always have. When I got home at 9, the house was quiet. Mason's laptop was on the kitchen counter, closed, next to a neat stack of manila folders, labeled with things like utilities, insurance, and bank statements. I climbed the stairs quietly, checking on Piper first. She was fast asleep, her room tidy as always. Mason had read to her. I could see the bookmark moved in her favorite story collection. The master bedroom felt enormous and empty. I lay in our king-size bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of Mason moving around in the guest room. My phone buzzed, a text from Cade. Thanks for tonight. You deserve someone who appreciates your spirit. I typed back, thanks for understanding. Always. Sleep well, beautiful. I deleted the message thread before putting my phone on the nightstand, just in case. But as I drifted off to sleep, I couldn't shake the image of those manila folders, or the way Mason had looked at me in the kitchen, like he was seeing a stranger instead of his wife. The next few days brought a steady stream of consequences I hadn't anticipated. The video had reached 50,000 views, but the comments section had become a battlefield. For every person calling me brave or authentic, there were 2 others using words like disrespectful and attention-seeking. Worse, the negativity was spreading beyond social media. At Piper's school pickup, other mothers gave me strange looks and whispered among themselves. Janet from work had started avoiding me, and even the barista at my usual coffee shop seemed cooler than normal. But it was Mason's behavior that worried me most. He'd become methodical in a way that felt ominous. Every morning, he'd sit at the kitchen table with his laptop and those manila folders, making notes in a small notebook with precise handwriting. When I tried to see what he was working on, he'd close everything and move to another room. What are you documenting over there? I asked on Thursday morning, trying to keep my tone light. Finances, making sure everything's organized. For what? He looked at me for a long moment. For whatever comes next. That afternoon, I decided to investigate. Mason was at work, Piper was at school, and I had the house to myself. I went to his desk in the guest room, but everything was locked away. The manila folders were gone, presumably taken with him to work. But I did find something interesting, a small silver key on his keychain that I didn't recognize. It was newer than the others, recently cut. What was he keeping locked up? My phone rang. It was my mother. Vesperine, darling, how are you holding up? I'm fine, Mom. Why wouldn't I be? Well, I've been hearing things. People talking about your video, about Mason moving into the guest room. People need to mind their own business. I agree completely. I think what you did was wonderful. So bold, so modern. Mason needs to stop being such a stick in the mud about it. This was exactly what I needed to hear. Thank you, finally, someone who gets it. Of course I get it. You've always been special, Vess. Different from other girls. You can't let Mason's insecurity dim your light. He changed the passwords on our bank accounts, Mum. He's being completely unreasonable. Men do that when they feel threatened. He'll come around once he realizes he's being silly. But when I hung up, I didn't feel better. I felt more isolated than ever. That evening, Mason came home with a thick envelope and another manila folder. He went straight to the guest room, and I heard him on the phone again, speaking in that same low, serious tone. At dinner, Piper was unusually quiet. What's wrong, baby? I asked. Emma's mum asked me about the video today. Mason's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. What did she say? She wanted to know if you and Mommy were getting divorced like her parents did. She said her mum saw Mommy walking with another man at the wedding. I felt my face flush. What did you tell her? I said you were just being silly, but Emma said her mum thinks you're going to leave Daddy for the other man. Mason set down his fork. Piper, why don't you go watch TV? Mommy and I need to talk. After she left, Mason turned to me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not angry, not hurt, but something colder. Resolved. This stops now, Vess. What stops? All of it. The posts, the dinners with Cade, the public humiliation. Our daughter is being questioned at school because of your behavior. I can't control what other people. You can control what you post online. You can control whether you have dinner with your ex-boyfriend 3 times a week. You can control whether you prioritize your social media following over your family's well-being. You're being dramatic. Am I? Let me read you some of these comments. He pulled out his phone. Here's one. This woman is clearly cheating on her husband. Another one. Poor guy, his wife is humiliating him publicly. And this one. Someone should tell that husband to get a good lawyer. Those people don't know us. But they know what they see. And what they see is a woman who cares more about going viral than about her husband's feelings. I stood up, pacing to the window. I'm not going to apologize for refusing to live in a box, Mason. I'm not going to pretend that my past doesn't matter or that I don't have meaningful relationships outside our marriage. Meaningful relationships. He repeated the word slowly. Is that what you call it? Cade and I have history. We understand each other in ways that I don't. I stopped pacing. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Mason stood up, gathering his dishes. I'll be working late in the guest room tonight. Don't wait up. As he left, I heard him make another phone call. This time, I caught more words. Timeline established. Documentation complete. Ready to proceed. I tried to focus on other things. I posted a new photo on Instagram, a selfie with the caption, "Staying strong in the face of negativity," or "Authentic life," or "Tune, no regrets." But even the likes and supportive comments couldn't shake the growing dread in my stomach. Late that night, I crept to the guest room door and listened. Mason was still awake, typing on his laptop. I could hear the soft clicking of keys, steady and methodical. I knocked softly. Mason, can we talk? The typing stopped. It's late, Vez. I know, but I can't sleep. I feel like we're drifting apart and I don't know how to fix it. There was a long pause. Then the door opened. Mason stood there in his pajamas, looking tired but alert. Behind him, I could see his laptop open on the small desk, surrounded by papers and folders. You want to fix it? He asked. Of course I do. Then delete the video. Delete all the posts about Cade. Stop having dinner with him. Show our daughter and everyone else that your marriage comes first. I can't just erase my friendships because you're uncomfortable with them. Then we don't have anything to talk about. He started to close the door. Mason, wait. What are you working on in there? All the folders, the phone calls, the late nights. What's going on? He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something in his eyes that made my blood run cold. Not anger, not hurt, but a kind of calm certainty that was somehow worse than either. I'm preparing, Vess, for whatever comes next. Preparing for what? You'll find out soon enough. He closed the door, and I heard the lock click into place. Friday morning brought a new crisis. I woke up to 17 missed calls and dozens of text messages. My video had been shared by a popular relationship blogger with the caption, "When modern love goes too far. Thoughts?" The comments on that post were brutal. Thousands of people were dissecting my marriage, my choices, my character. Some defended me, but they were vastly outnumbered by critics calling me everything from narcissistic to unfit mother. My hands shook as I scrolled through the responses. This wasn't just about my little video anymore. It had become a symbol in some larger cultural debate about marriage, fidelity, and social media. Mason was already gone when I came downstairs. He'd left a note saying he'd taken Piper to school and would be working late again. The manila folders were gone from the kitchen table, but I noticed something new. A small digital camera on the counter, the kind used for security systems. Was he recording me now? At work, Mr. Caro called me into his office again. "Ms. Allard, we need to discuss your social media presence again. I haven't posted anything about work. You've become a public figure, whether you intended to or not. We've had reporters call asking for comments about you. Reporters, Ms. Allard." My stomach dropped. What kind of reporters? The kind who write about viral stories and social media controversies. This is exactly what we discussed last week. He slid a piece of paper across his desk. This is a formal written warning. Any further incidents that bring negative attention to our company will result in termination. I signed the paper with shaking hands, feeling like the walls were closing in. That evening, I came home to find Naomi's car in our driveway. Mason's sister was sitting at our kitchen table with Piper, helping her with homework while Mason cooked dinner. It was such a domestic scene, so normal and peaceful, that for a moment I felt like an intruder in my own home. "Hi, Aunt Naomi," Piper said brightly. "Look, I got an A on my math test." "That's wonderful, sweetheart." Naomi's voice was warm with Piper, but when she looked at me, her expression cooled considerably. "Hello, Vess." "Naomi, I didn't know you were coming over." "Mason asked me to help with Piper while he handles some business tonight." "What business?" Mason looked up from the stove. "I have a meeting downtown. I'll be back late." "What kind of meeting?" "The kind that's necessary." After dinner, Naomi helped Piper get ready for bed, while Mason gathered his papers and that mysterious thick envelope. I followed him to the front door. "Mason, please, talk to me. What's happening? What are these meetings about?" He paused with his hand on the doorknob. "Do you remember what you said to me last week, about how this is 2024 and love isn't about ownership?" "Yes. You were right, love isn't about ownership, but marriage is about partnership, respect, and putting your family first. And you've made it clear that's not what you want." "That's not true." "Isn't it? When's the last time you asked how I was feeling? When's the last time you put Piper's needs before your social media presence? When's the last time you chose our marriage over your relationship with Cade?" I opened my mouth to argue, but no words came. "That's what I thought." He opened the door. "I'll be back late. Naomi's staying over to help with Piper's morning routine." After he left, I sat in the living room while Naomi finished reading to Piper. When she came downstairs, her expression was serious. "We need to talk, Vess. If this is about the video, it's about my niece and my brother and what your choices are doing to both of them. My choices are my own business. Not when they affect a 6-year-old girl who's being questioned at school about whether her parents are getting divorced." I felt tears starting. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it is happening, and instead of trying to fix it, you're doubling down. More posts, more dinners with Cade, more public displays that humiliate Mason and confuse Piper. I'm not trying to humiliate anyone. Then what are you trying to do? I'm trying to be myself. I'm trying to live authentically, instead of pretending to be someone I'm not. Naomi studied me for a long moment. "And who are you, Vess?" "Really? I'm someone who refuses to be controlled, someone who won't shrink herself to make other people comfortable. Or someone who's so addicted to attention that she's willing to destroy her marriage to get it." The words hit like a physical blow. "That's not fair. Isn't it? Look at what you've done. Look at what you're still doing. My brother is one of the best men I know. He's patient, kind, hard-working, devoted to his family. And you're throwing that away for what? Social media fame? The thrill of keeping your ex-boyfriend around? You don't understand. I understand that Piper asked me tonight if she was going to have to choose between living with mommy or daddy. A 6-year-old shouldn't have to think about things like that. After Naomi went to bed in the guest room, I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at my phone. The blogger's post had reached 100,000 shares. My own video was approaching 200,000 views. I was famous in a way. People knew my name, had opinions about my life, debated my choices. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like everything was slipping away. Mason came home after midnight. I heard him talking quietly with Naomi in the hallway, then the sound of papers rustling in the guest room. He was still awake when I finally fell asleep. The soft clicking of his laptop keys, a constant reminder that something was building, something I couldn't see or control. In the morning, I found a new folder on the kitchen counter, labeled simply Final Steps. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a downtown address and a time, Monday, 1:25 p.m. When I asked Mason about it, he just said, "You'll understand soon enough." But I was starting to suspect that by the time I understood, it would be too late to change anything. The weekend passed in an eerie quiet. Mason was polite but distant, treating me like a houseguest rather than his wife. He took Piper to her soccer game on Saturday while I stayed home, claiming I had work to catch up on. In reality, I spent the morning obsessively checking my social media metrics and reading the endless stream of comments about my life. The viral blogger had posted a follow-up piece titled "The Psychology of Public Humiliation in Modern Marriage," using my video as a case study. I was simultaneously fascinated and horrified to see my choices dissected by strangers who claimed to understand my motivations better than I did. Sunday dinner was particularly tense. Mason had cooked Piper's favorite meal, spaghetti and meatballs, and she chatted happily about her upcoming school play while Mason and I sat in silence. "Mommy, are you coming to my play on Thursday?" Piper asked. "Of course, baby, I wouldn't miss it." "What about Daddy?" Mason looked up from his plate. "I'll be there, sweetheart. Wouldn't miss it for the world." Something in his tone made me look at him more closely. There was a finality to his words that I didn't like. "We should probably coordinate," I said. "Make sure we're both free that evening." "I've already arranged my schedule," Mason said. "Thursday will be significant." After Piper went to bed, I tried one more time to break through the wall Mason had built between us. "Mason, I know things have been difficult lately, but we can work through this. We've been together for 8 years. That has to count for something." He was sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop, as had become his routine. Tonight, though, there was something different about his posture. More relaxed, like a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. 8 years, he repeated. "You're right, that should count for something." "It does count. It counts for everything." "Then why doesn't it feel that way?" "What do you mean?" He closed his laptop and looked at me directly for the first time in days. "When you were planning that stunt with Cade, did you think about our 8 years together? When you post photos of your dinner dates with him, do you consider what that does to our marriage? When you defend your right to humiliate me in public, are you thinking about the life we've built together? I never meant to humiliate you, but you did. And when given the choice between acknowledging that and doubling down on your behavior, you chose to double down. Every time." I felt tears starting. "I don't know how to fix this." "I know you don't. That's the problem." He gathered his papers and stood up. "I have some final preparations to make tonight. I'd suggest you get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." "What happens tomorrow?" "You'll see." Monday morning, Mason was gone before I woke up. He'd left a note saying he'd taken Piper to school and would handle pickup as well. There was something else on the kitchen counter, a thick manila envelope with my name written on it in Mason's careful handwriting. Inside were photocopies of bank statements, credit card bills, mortgage documents, and insurance policies. Everything was highlighted and annotated in Mason's precise script. At the bottom of the stack was a single sheet of paper with a downtown address and a time, 1:25 p.m. My hands were shaking as I called Mason's cell phone. "You need to come downtown today," he said without preamble. "Mason, what is this? What are all these documents?" "Everything you need to understand what happens next." "I don't understand." "You will. 1:25 p.m. Vess. Don't be late." The line went dead. I spent the morning in a panic, calling in sick to work and pacing around the house. I tried calling Mason back, but his phone went straight to voicemail. I considered calling Naomi, but something told me she already knew what was happening. At 12:30, I drove downtown, my heart pounding. The address led me to a large civic building near the courthouse. I parked and sat in my car for several minutes, trying to calm my nerves. At exactly 1:25, I walked through the front doors and saw Mason immediately. He was standing near the information desk, wearing his best suit and holding a briefcase I'd never seen before. Next to him stood a woman in professional attire who I didn't recognize. "Mason?" My voice came out smaller than I'd intended. He turned, and I was struck by how different he looked. Confident, composed, almost relieved, like he'd been carrying a heavy burden and had finally set it down. "Thank you for coming, Vess." "What is this place? Who is she?" I gestured to the woman beside him. "This is Ms. Rodriguez from the family law firm downtown, and this," he gestured to the building around us, "is where we're going to make everything official." "Official?" The woman stepped forward, extending a large envelope. "Mrs. Allard, I'm serving you with a petition for dissolution of marriage, along with temporary custody and support arrangements." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Divorce papers?" "Everything's been filed with the court," Mason said quietly. "Custody arrangements for Piper, division of assets, support calculations. It's all there." I stared at the envelope in my hands, unable to process what was happening. "Mason, you can't be serious." "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." "But we can work this out. We can go to counseling, we can—" "Vess, I've been documenting everything for weeks. The social media posts, the dinners with Cade, the way you've prioritized your online persona over our family. I have timestamps, screenshots, financial records showing how much you've spent on your dinners and outings while I've been handling all the household expenses. You've been spying on me. I've been protecting myself and our daughter. Everything I've documented is public record. Your own social media posts, credit card statements from our joint accounts, witness statements from people who were at our vow-renewal ceremony." The woman, Ms. Rodriguez, spoke again. "Mrs. Allard, you'll want to review these documents carefully and consult with your own attorney. The custody arrangement is generous, considering the circumstances." "Considering what circumstances?" Mason's voice was steady, almost gentle. "Considering that you've publicly documented your emotional affair, shown poor judgment regarding our daughter's well-being, and demonstrated a pattern of prioritizing social media attention over family stability. It's not an affair. A judge will decide that, along with everything else." I looked around the civic building, suddenly aware that people were watching us. Some had their phones out, probably recognizing me from the viral video. In a few hours, this moment would probably be online too. Another piece of my life dissected by strangers. "Mason, please, don't do this here, not in public." "You made our marriage public, Vess. You turned our most intimate moments into content for social media consumption. This is just the logical conclusion." He was right, and we both knew it. I'd courted public attention, lived my life online, made our private struggles into entertainment. I couldn't complain now about the lack of privacy. "What about Piper?" "She's with Naomi. She'll stay there until we work out a permanent custody schedule." "You can't keep her from me." "I'm not keeping her from you. The temporary custody order gives you supervised visitation while we work through the legal process. Everything's been done properly, legally, with Piper's best interests as the priority." I opened the envelope with shaking hands. The documents were thick, official, intimidating. Page after page of legal language that would reshape our entire lives. How long have you been planning this? Since the vow renewal. That's when I realized that the woman I married was gone, replaced by someone who cares more about viral fame than about her family. That's not true. Isn't it? Look around, Vess. Look at what your choices have led to. Look at what you've chosen, again and again, over our marriage. I wanted to argue, to fight, to scream that he was wrong. But standing there in that civic building, holding divorce papers while strangers took photos, I couldn't find the words. Because deep down, I knew he was right. The papers include a timeline for response, Ms. Rodriguez said professionally. You have 30 days to file your own petition or response. I'd strongly recommend consulting with an attorney as soon as possible. Mason picked up his briefcase. I'll be in touch about Piper's schedule. Everything else goes through the lawyers now. As he walked away, I stood frozen in the middle of the civic building, holding the papers that would end my marriage. Around me, people continued to stare and whisper and take photos. I'd wanted to be famous, to live boldly, to refuse to shrink myself for anyone's comfort. I'd gotten exactly what I asked for, and lost everything that actually mattered in the process. The next morning, I woke up in an empty house that no longer felt like home. Mason had come by while I was at my emergency consultation with a divorce attorney, gathering more of his belongings and leaving a formal schedule for Piper's visitation. The attorney had been brutally honest about my situation. Mason's documentation was thorough and damaging. Months of social media posts showing my friendship with Cade, financial records, proving I'd been spending marital assets on dinners and outings while Mason handled household responsibilities, and witness statements from our vow renewal ceremony that painted a picture of someone with questionable judgment and priorities. Your husband's attorney has built a very strong case, she'd said. The social media evidence alone shows a pattern of behavior that courts view unfavorably in custody determinations. But I never physically cheated, I'd protested. Emotional infidelity is still infidelity in the eyes of the law, and you've documented it extensively yourself. Now, sitting in my kitchen with the divorce papers spread across the table, I tried to figure out how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications. The video of Mason serving me divorce papers in the civic building had gone viral too, shared with captions like, "When keeping it real goes wrong," and "Play stupid games, win stupid prizes." The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd wanted social media fame, and I'd achieved it. I was now the cautionary tale everyone shared to make themselves feel better about their own choices. My mother called around noon. "Vesperine, I just saw the news. Are you all right?" "No, Mom, I'm not all right. My husband just served me with divorce papers in public and took our daughter." "Well, he's certainly being dramatic about the whole thing." "Dramatic? Mom, he's documented everything. He has evidence of every dinner with Cade, every social media post, every choice I made that prioritized my online presence over my family. He's just trying to intimidate you. No judge is going to break up a family over a harmless video." "It wasn't harmless, Mom. I can see that now. I humiliated him in front of everyone we know, then doubled down on it instead of apologizing." "You were being yourself." "I was being selfish." The words came out harsher than I'd intended, but they were true. I was so focused on proving I wouldn't be controlled that I forgot I was supposed to be a partner, a wife, a mother. There was silence on the other end of the line. "I have to go, Mom. I have to figure out how to fix this." But even as I said it, I knew it was probably too late. Mason's face in that civic building hadn't shown anger or hurt. It had shown resolution. He'd made his decision and followed through with the methodical precision that had always been his strength. That evening, I had my first supervised visitation with Piper at a quiet family restaurant. Naomi waited at a nearby table while we shared chicken nuggets. "Mummy, why can't I come home?" Piper asked. "Daddy and I are working through grown-up problems, baby. It's not your fault, and we both love you so much." "Is it because of the video?" The one where you walked with Cade instead of Daddy? The words sliced through me. Partly, yes. Mommy made mistakes, and now we need to figure out how to fix them. Are you getting divorced like Emma's parents? I glanced at Naomi, watching us closely. I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe. Will I still see you? Of course. I'll always be your mommy, and I'll always love you. But the words felt fragile. My attorney had already warned me the social media evidence would weigh heavily in custody decisions. After dinner, I hugged Piper goodbye and watched them drive away. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and sobbed like I hadn't since childhood. Over the next weeks, the viral attention I'd chased turned vicious. Clients complained, and I was fired. My accounts, once a source of validation, became flooded with hate and judgment. The custody evaluation was worse. The psychologist's report was brutal. My pattern of prioritizing social media over family stability showed poor judgment. Mason was steady, child-focused, the primary source of security. The final hearing fell on the same day as Piper's school play. Mason wanted certainty for her. In court, his attorney methodically detailed my posts, the dinners with Cade, the vow-renewal humiliation, my refusal to change. When my turn came, I stood. Your Honor, my husband is right about everything. I prioritized my online image over my family. I humiliated him publicly. I put my desires above my daughter's well-being. My lawyer looked stunned, but I kept going. I thought I was being authentic. I was just selfish. Mason is a good father. Piper deserves better. The judge asked if I was contesting the petition. I'm not. I'd like reasonable visitation and a fair asset division, but I won't fight the divorce. Mason has earned the right to move on. An hour later, the gavel fell. 8 years ended. Mason got primary custody, the house, most assets. I got supervised visitation, my car, and the truth. I'd torched my life for likes. Outside, Mason paused. Vess, I'm sorry it came to this. I'm not, I said. You protected yourself and Piper. I respect that. I hope you find what you're looking for. I think I finally have. It just took losing everything. That night, I watched Piper's school play from the back row. She glowed as the lead fairy. When she bowed, she waved at both of us. After, Mason brought her over. You were amazing, baby, I said, kneeling. Thank you, Mummy. Did you like my costume? I loved everything. I'm so proud of you. As they left, Mason turned. She'll always need her mother, Vess. Just be the mother she deserves. I nodded, throat tight. 6 months later, I lived in a small apartment across town, freelancing in marketing. I saw Piper every other weekend. My social media was private, used only for family. Mason had remarried, a kind woman who loved Piper like her own. I declined the wedding invite but sent a gift and a note. Wishing you all the happiness you deserve. I was alone, truly alone. But for the first time, I was honest about who I'd been and what I'd done. Sometimes, late at night, I realized that authenticity isn't about refusing limits or chasing validation. It's about owning the wreckage and choosing to rebuild, even if the view is quiet and small. And maybe that's a kind of freedom after all.